So recently I did a video that had a stair-step illusion in it, and the turning looked very similar to this. There was a lot of interest in how I made those illusions, the little steps, and I promised that I would make a video showing that. And I also said that I would make an easy shape so that I can about guarantee you would have the illusion, and that would be to make it straight up and down. It would look like a cylinder, not curved like this. So that's what you're going to see. And I also said that maybe we could get it curved like this and still have the illusion. Well, stick around and see what we end up doing there. I also know that not everyone is interested in seeing those kind of details that involve angles and math and stuff like that. So if you want to just stick around until you see something on a turntable, I won't put that information until after that. But if you want to stick around to see the rest of it, that'd be fantastic as well. So, you know, it's getting kind of cold out here. I think I'm going to go get a cup of coffee and finish the editing on this video. So let's get started. I'm going to start with what I'm going to call the feature segment. It's what creates the illusion. So this piece is a piece of black walnut. You can choose whatever you want. It's all about contrast of the wood. I'll show you how making this will help you figure out the length of your segment. If you do your segments first, I think this becomes harder to do. So that's going to get glued together, these three pieces. That's black walnut, that's cherry. You can use whatever you want. You're looking for a contrast with these pieces to make that shadow effect. So I'm going to glue this together. I don't think it's necessary you watch the glue up, but I'll just start it and maybe we'll run it quick. But again, it's just standard glue up. I'll be giving the dimensions for all the pieces we're working on at the end of the video in the part that shows exactly how to make this illusion. Alright, here's one of these strips that's been glued up for a day and it's ready to cut. This is a sled that I use for many different things. Right now I have this set up for 45 degrees off of this side over there, which is parallel with the blade. So you're 45 degrees off the blade. And the way I did that was I just used this starret square and I went like that, and that is perfect. And if it goes off a little bit, it's still going to work. But make everything you can as close as you can. I've already calibrated the stop here. When I cut this, it's going to create one end of the piece. So always keep some stock, some scraps that you can use while you're doing this. You don't want to waste this glue up by making something too small and you can't use it. So I will take anything that I have laying around, I'll put it in, and as soon as I measure it and say it's right, I lock everything down and then I start cutting. I have that locked in. This is going to cut about 5/8 of an inch. When I do this, I'll lock it down. And these are a necessity for me, and they really make it easy. There's 626. 625 is exactly 5/8. That's good enough. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and cut some segments. There's going to be 16 per row. This is basic segmented ring glue up, so I'm not going to talk too much about this. This video is basically about how to make that segment that makes the illusion. So we're going to spend a lot of time on that. If you want to see it again, wait till after you see everything on the turntable, and that's where we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of how to do it. So here's a sneak preview of that segment. Not a lot to see from here, but wait till you see it looking on the end of it. It's going to be pretty cool. So I'm going to slide this onto my glue press, readjust the camera, and I'll show you how I stack this up. Alright, I have a waxed up piece of plexiglass. I'll put that on top of there, and just for a spacer, I'm going to use this. I'm going to slip a couple of rubber bands under here. Just put a little bit of pressure so it doesn't slide. I'll go down, drop that rubber band. I like to use a square piece of plexiglass on the bottom. Makes it easier to keep the rubber bands from popping off the underside, which can happen. Alright, I have them on. Loosen this up. Take that off. I go around and make sure the corners, every corner is touching the next corner. If that's what you have, this thing should be about as round as you could possibly get it. It pretty much went into place on its own. So that's it right there. Put that back on. Put this on here. I'm using that so I spread the pressure. And we'll just clamp it up like so. It's not going to go anywhere. I'm going to just let that sit for the rest of the day probably, because the rest of the day isn't very long before the day is over. Alright, I have glued one of the rings on the base. I have actually two rings here for the base, and it's a segmented base. So I'm going to show you how I glue the next ring on, and after I do that, I'll just show you the rest of them done in sequence. So let's go ahead and get started. This will actually be very easy to line up. On each side of the walnut I have triangles. So I'm going to line up the right hand that's looking straight down on it. The triangle that's on the right side is going to line up perfectly with the one on the left side. And that is all there is to it. You might be able to see the steps already developed. We have two steps there. Okay, like I say, I'm going to glue the rest of them on. It'll look just like what we're doing here. I just want to maybe save some time for more explaining that I think I should do. I'm going to go ahead and clean all these segments up. I'm going to just make it flat for now so you can see the stair steps easier. After I do that, I'll go ahead and put a shape on it and show you what it looks like with the shape, and that you actually can turn these extra wide segments into a nice looking turning. I'm going to use a 1/2 inch bowl gouge, and it looks like you can do about 800 RPM easy enough. Alright, there it is. Pretty cool. I'm going to go ahead and put a shape on the outside here. I'll get it sanded, I'll put a finish on it. After that, I'm going to go into a lot of detail on why I did what I did and things that'll make it much easier for you to do. And I know a lot of people don't want to see that. They don't like listening to me talking, but I know some of you want to see how I do this. So make sure you stick around afterwards and I'll explain exactly what I did. After I get this turned to shape, I'll get it on a turntable so you can see how it looks, and then we'll go into the detail. Again, if you want to see that detail, go ahead and watch it. Let me know what you think. But if you don't want to see any more, let me know what you think about this. I have a general idea of the shape that I want. I know that I have 1 inch of stock that I can use to create that shape. And I'll do most of the shaping on the outside, and then I'll just follow that shape on the inside as close as I can. I'm going to speed this up because this is more about making these segments than turning. So the idea here is to have a fairly simple glue up and then be able to make a nice shape out of it. I'll show you later on how you can make the glue up a little more complex and save a little bit material, but it'll be a lot slower gluing up. So I kind of like this method. This is only the second stair-step illusion that I've made like this, and the other one I glued it up with the steps in the rings like you would a conventional segmented turning. I wanted to make this easy, so I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how we could cut the pieces so you can make a cylinder and turn it into a curved shape if you want. I think this is going to work out pretty good, and it's going to be fairly easy to do. So because this is not truly a turning video, I am showing some of it, but it's more about how to do the illusion, so I'm not going to show you any sanding or putting the finish on. But as soon as I'm done shaping this inside out, I'm going to show you what this looks like, and then we'll move on to the more technical stuff. Well, here it is, and I am very happy with how it turned out. So I'm going to show you the steps in a second, but I also am going to put this on a turntable, and then I'll tell you the size that this is, the wall thickness, the type of finish I used, and I'll tell you what wood's being used in here. But there are the steps right there. And as you rotate it, they can start looking, well, right there, to me that looks like I'm in a basement and I'm walking up out of there just to escape from that dungeon. So I think that's pretty cool. For those of you who just wanted to see this, and I kind of said at the beginning, there's going to be some detail that you may not want to watch. After I'm done with the turntable, I'm going to go into that detail. So I do appreciate you getting this far. If you don't want to see any more, that's fine. But if you'd like to go to the end, I would appreciate that too, because it'll help more people see it, because YouTube will suggest this more if you watch clear to the end. But you don't have to. I'm just saying that so more people can see how to do this. Also, if you're new to the channel and you really liked what you saw, I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe and at least give me a thumbs up and leave a comment and tell me your thoughts on this. So, like I said, we're going to get going after we're done on the turntable. And it's not going to be heavy math. I'm going to try to make it as simple as it can be. So again, thanks to all of you who got this far. It finished 5 inches tall, and it's 5.5 inches in diameter. The steps are made from black walnut and cherry. The rest is made from linden wood, except for the base, which is yarn. Something I really like is I processed the wood from pieces of logs that I had, first drying them and then planing them to thickness on my new thickness planer. I finished it with multiple coats of sprayed on lacquer, then buffed it with Axe abrasive paste and polish. The linden wood came from viewer Gill, the black walnut came from my nephew Warren, the cherry I got off of Nextdoor, which is an app where people sell and give things away. The yarn came from a yard sale. Okay, let's get down to how we make those steps. This is the material that will become the feature segment, and I think you really need to make this first before you cut any other segments, because this, when you get this made, will determine the exact size of the rest of the segments. You can have that size in mind, and I'm going to show you how you figure out how wide this piece of walnut needs to be to make that happen. And then you'll be able to cut these into individual pieces. We're going to end up turning that into this piece, which is your feature segment. And you notice it has parallel sides. It's not angled like you would a normal segment. But I'm going to go over that as well, because by doing it where it's parallel like this, as you turn it, if you go past the diameter that you had planned, you're not going to mess up the look of it, which you could mess it up a lot if you cut too much off. So I've already glued a set together with the parallel. I've marked a radius on there. These are cut with a segment that's wedged like you normally would do. I'm going to cut that, and then I'll show you on the face how it's going to change it. If you're only making a turning that has straight up and down walls, then you could do it like this and not have any trouble. But if you overcut it, then it will change the look. So I'm going to do that and show it to you. But I'm going to show you most of this stuff on the computer, how you figure out how to draw this up and come up with the proper size of the width of the segment. Okay, I just got through rounding the segments up, and this is the one that has the special cuts, and you can see that the corners are nice and sharp. This one is the one that had normal cut segments where the sides have angles, and you can see that we've got this one got flattened off, and that got flattened off, and I could kind of see that as I was trying to design what I wanted to make here. So I've just proved out that indeed, if you decide to make a shape on it, you're going to get these little corners that are knocked off. It might look okay, but that's going to look a lot better. In this project, I know how wide I want my segment to be. Now I need to figure out how wide does that strip of black walnut needs to be. I'm going to show you how you can figure that out based on the width of the segment you chose. So let's go ahead and get going. Alright, I'm going to show you how I came up with the sizes for that segment that I just showed you. First thing I did was I came up with the size I wanted to use for the segment, and then after I have that figured out, this is 1.19 by 5/8 thick, but I'll show you those dimensions in a second. But in order to create that dark strip, I'll go from these corners and do a 45-degree angle. There's one, there's the other. Now I need to measure that, and it needs to be perpendicular to that line that is 0.4 inches wide. And the rest of this, it's 1.19, and it's 625, just like I was showing you. So when we have this, we will glue up a glue strip. That's the glue strip. That center piece is 0.4 inches vertically as you look at it. These other pieces can just be a random number as long as it's enough to be able to cut this out of it. So that is 0.4, just like this, and I just made sure I had enough on the light wood. That's 3/4 of an inch. When I have this made, I'll need to cut as many pieces out of it at a 45-degree angle. So that's the pieces it will cut to make this piece down here. So to verify that we have 5/8 of an inch, I'll measure that. That is 5/8 of an inch right there. So we pretty much have everything we need at this point. So I'm going to move this a little bit like so. What I'm going to do is I'll bring one of these pieces down and I'll show you what that looks like. After we cut this, we will have a piece that looks like that. Then we need to cut the ends off to this size, and you notice that we'll be cutting off at that corner the same as what we have here. That would be this piece here is the same as that. Now if I cut it off at the corner, the upper left corner of the dark strip and the lower right, this is what it will look like, just like that. So now we have this piece is this piece right here, and the depth of what you're looking at here, I made that a little over an inch, and I made it that way so we could make sure that we get a turning out of this and you have enough stock to actually put a shape on it. So I'll show you what the ring looks like. So here's the ring without this segment in there. If you notice, all but these two segments are just cut normal. This has got 22.5 included angle, so each side is 11.25. This segment has 11.25 on the left side. As we look at it, it has 22.5 on that side, and the reason is this segment is just perpendicular, no angle. That means I can fit this into here, and I'll show you that. That pops in there just like that. So that segment fits in there. That's why you have the special angle here. So I think now we'll go out to the shop and I'll show you those sleds in more detail than what you saw at the beginning of the video, and I'll try to show you all the sleds up close, and well, that's about it until we go cut the pieces. This is one of the strips that I cut on a 45 degree on that glue up that I showed you. I now need to make a rectangular segment out of it. I need to go to this corner and take away all the cherry on that side of that corner on a 90 degrees, and then I need to take all of it away the same way on this side. This is totally different than a normal segment which has 11.25 on each side. So we're going to go ahead and line this up. My sled, the blade's right up against it. If I line up that corner with this edge, and I have a toggle clamp right there, and if I cut that, it should be what we want. And that's pretty much it. I'll do this one and we'll zoom in and I'll show you what it looks like down here. Alright, here's the edge of my sled. You can see the corner coming right to it, right there. So I'm going to cut that and pull it back and show you. The corner of that walnut is right up against there. Alright, here's the segment. It's all ready, and this one can be glued in place. I highly recommend making this before you cut the majority of these segments. And we also have to make one more special segment. So I'm going to make a special setup to cut the 22.5 degree angle that we need on only one side of two of the segments. A couple of ways to get that angle set up so that you can get a rail to work against. One is one of these digital protractors. If you don't have one of those, there's other ways, such as this protractor. Now, I've used this for many years. We had a customer at work we built patterns for. There were some patterns they actually specified, do not use this when you lay out the angle on this pattern. It's very critical. Use math. So if you have those other two, you can use them. If you don't have any of that, you just need to look up the tangent up 22.5 which is 0.4142. I use 10 inches because that's what you use on like sign plates, and it just makes it easy when you see the next number. So times 10, you get 4.142. It rounded out to 0.2. That's plenty close enough. So I've made a straight line across here using this. I measured over 10 inches. I squared down to where that's at. I measured up and got the 4.142, and I put a mark here. All I really need to do is put a straight line, straight edge across here, and you could hot glue that down, you could double sticky it down, you can put screws in it, anything you want. So that's how you can get that. This will cut it. So I thought I better go over how I use a calculator just in case you don't have either one of those protractors. I'll try to make it as easy as I can. So if you don't have a protractor like I showed, don't let this scare you, because this is just a calculator. We all use calculators, and they have them on your computer, so you can do it like I'm doing it right here. This is my computer. We're looking for 22.5 degrees. So I need to find the tangent of that, and this part of it is called trigonometry. Don't let that word scare you either. I actually love trigonometry. Here's the tangent right there, TAN. When you click that, this number is 4142. That is per inch. That's how much that angle raises per inch. Easy way to keep track of it and to actually draw this out is make that times 10. There's our number, 4.142, and that's plenty close enough, but you can also add the 1. So that's it. That's as easy as it becomes. So if you know how to do this, that's great. If you don't know how to do it, tell your friends you figured out how to do this using trigonometry. This is sort of my universal sled where I can set it up to whatever I need at the time. This is cutting a 90. I've got that set up to cut 22.5 degrees. And that's because this segment, I didn't put any angle on the joints. It's just parallel. It's a 90 degrees. These are the normal segments that we'd be using. They have 11.25 on each side, so I need to have, on one side, I need to have 22.5. I'm not going to try to hold this and cut it. What I'll do is I'll first get a 11.25 on one side, and I'm able to hang on to this and cut the 22.5 on the other. And I do that by making sure I leave some pieces that big before I cut the angle, and I may have already showed you that. I put this against here, and you can see I drew a line on there to match that side. That's going to go away because that's not what we want. Alright, I think you can see now I have that angle like that. I get another one on this side, and it will equal 3 of the other ones. They'll line up right on top of each other. So that's how I get this cut parallel. This is how I get this special angle on it using this sled right here. Well, we've reached the end of this video, and I certainly hope that you were able to understand how to make this stair-step illusion. I will say that this has been the most work I've ever put into editing a video, and that's because I wanted it to be something that was easy to understand. So let me know if it was. Also, because it was so much work, if you could share this with everybody, because it was enough work. I'd like to see every segmented turner have a chance to make one of these. So share it with everybody. I'm not asking you to put a poster on your telephone post, but just pass this around as much as you can. I would sure appreciate that, because like I said, it was a lot of work doing this, but again, I still enjoyed doing it, and let me know what you think about this and if you're able to successfully make this. So till the next time, I'll see you later.